I, a 33-year-old male, was with my wife, a 31-year-old female, for about 7 years, married for 4 of those. The first few years were straight up perfect, no cap. We were that annoying couple everyone rolls their eyes at, inside jokes, finishing each other's sentences, all that cliché crap. You know the type, those people you kind of hate on social media but secretly wish you had what they had. We had our system down. I'd handle bills and investments. I work in IT, so numbers are kind of my thing. She'd take care of the social calendar and house stuff. We'd do these dumb movie marathons where we'd argue for like an hour about what to watch, then end up watching the same Marvel movies we always did. She'd plan these elaborate date nights, and I'd surprise her with her favorite Thai takeout after a rough day at work. Honestly, I thought we had this whole relationship thing figured out. My parents never really approved, though. My older brother was always their golden child, doctor, perfect wife, big house, the whole package. Meanwhile, I was just the guy who married beneath our family status, according to my mom. What are we, the freaking Bridgertons? They'd tolerate my wife at family gatherings but never really welcomed her. I ignored all that noise because I thought we were solid. Then, a couple of months ago, things started to change. At first it was small stuff you might not even notice if you weren't paying attention. She started taking her phone everywhere, like even just to go to the bathroom or grab something from the kitchen. Before this, her phone would just sit on the coffee table for hours, and she couldn't care less who picked it up. She'd even ask me to reply to text for her if she was cooking or something. I made this joke one day like, "Damn, you running some drug operation I don't know about?" She laughed it off and said work was emailing her a lot. Cool, whatever. But then, a few days later, she locked that down with a password. That caught me off guard because she never used one before. When I asked about it, she mumbled something about security and hackers. I didn't push it because I didn't want to seem paranoid. But something felt off. The weird kept piling up. She started stepping out of the room for calls, something she never did before. It wasn't subtle either. Her phone would ring and she'd be like, "Oh, let me grab this real quick," and bounce to the bedroom or out to the porch. If I asked who it was, she'd just say, "Just a friend from work," without any details. Like, she used to put calls on speaker and include me in convos with her friends, and suddenly everything was all hush-hush. Then there was this new habit of keeping her phone face down. I didn't even notice it was weird until one day I reached for something near her phone, and she snatched it away so fast it was like watching a ninja move. I literally spilled my coffee, and she acted like I was the weird one for being startled. Her style changed, too. She started wearing these fancy outfits to work, new dresses, heels, makeup all done up. When I complimented her one morning, she just shrugged and said, "Just trying something new." Mind you, this is a woman who used to live in hoodies and jeans and would joke about how much she hated uncomfortable clothes. She even started getting her nails done regularly, something she used to call a waste of money. Our bank statement started looking different, too. Small charges at restaurants I'd never heard of, a hotel bar downtown. Why the heck is my wife at a hotel bar? Stores she'd never mentioned shopping at. Nothing huge, but definitely not our usual spots. When I asked about a $75 charge at some place called The Loft, she got all defensive, saying it was just drinks with coworkers. But I knew for a fact her team always hit up this Irish pub after work, not whatever the hell The Loft was. She started working late a lot too. Like her normal hours were 9 to 5, but suddenly she's not getting home till 7 or 8, saying they had team meetings or deadline crunches. I work in corporate too, and I know deadline crunches happen, but every week for months? Something wasn't adding up. All these little things were adding up, but I kept telling myself I was overthinking it. Maybe she was just going through some phase or whatever. I didn't want to be that jealous, controlling husband questioning her about every little thing. But deep down, I knew something was up. I started feeling like I was going crazy, you know? Like, am I just making up patterns that aren't there? Is this normal relationship evolution and I'm being paranoid? But man, when your gut is screaming at you that something's wrong, there's usually a reason. As the weeks went on, she started feeling distant as hell. Conversations that used to flow easily now felt like pulling teeth. We used to talk for hours about random crap, movies, work gossip, future plans, but now it was just basic roommate talk. Did you take out the trash? We need more milk. That kind of surface-level BS. Anytime I'd bring up future plans like, where should we go for our anniversary? Or should we start saving for a new car? She'd just nod and say, "Yeah, we'll see," then change the subject real quick. One time I mentioned maybe taking a trip to Hawaii next year, something we always talked about doing, and she legit looked panicked for a second before mumbling something about not planning that far ahead right now. The day it really clicked for me was this random Wednesday about a month ago. She told me she was meeting a friend for coffee after work. Sounded normal, she does that sometimes. I happened to be in the same area running errands, needed to grab a birthday gift for my nephew, and thought, Why not surprise her? Could be cute. Maybe we could grab dinner after or something. When I got to the coffee shop, though, she wasn't with any friend. She was outside, pacing back and forth with her phone pressed to her ear, looking all intense. I stayed in my car because something about her body language looked serious as hell. I wasn't trying to spy on her, but I couldn't help overhearing bits like, "It's almost ready," and "starting fresh soon." She was doing that thing people do when they're trying to be quiet in public but actually end up being super obvious. My stomach felt like I'd swallowed a brick. I couldn't figure out what she was talking about, but it didn't sound like work drama or friend gossip. It sounded bigger than that. Like something she'd been planning. But planning what? That's what I kept thinking. I drove home without letting her know I saw her. When she got home later, I asked how coffee was, trying to sound chill while playing some PS5. She gave me this whole detailed story about her friend Melissa venting about boyfriend problems and how she was giving advice and being supportive. The crazy thing? Melissa's been married for 2 years, no boyfriend problems to vent about. My wife didn't even realize she'd messed up her own lie. I nodded along, pretending to buy it, but my brain was in overdrive. What the hell was going on? Why lie about something so basic? Was I being paranoid, reading too much into normal, or was there something real going down? I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Then, out of nowhere, she brought up our finances. We were having dinner one night, just a normal weekday. We were talking about random stuff. Her work, some new Netflix show she wanted to watch, when she dropped, we should really organize all our financial stuff, with this weird, innocent smile that didn't reach her eyes. It was such a random comment that I just stared at her with a fork full of pasta halfway to my mouth. "What do you mean?" I asked. She shrugged. "I just think we should have everything in one place. Like all our account info, passwords, documents, that kind of thing, just in case of emergencies." I had no idea what to say. We'd never talked about this before, and the timing felt sketchy considering all the other weird I'd noticed. "What kind of emergencies?" I asked, trying to sound normal while my internal alarm bells were going crazy. She shrugged again, pushing her food around her plate. "It's just smart, isn't it? What if something happens to one of us? Or what if we need to make a big financial decision quickly?" Her explanation made sense on the surface, but something about how she said it set off alarms. It sounded rehearsed, like she'd been waiting for the right moment to bring it up. She couldn't even look me in the eye while saying it. I nodded and said, "Yeah, I guess that's a good idea." But inside, I was freaking out. Why now? Why suddenly care about organizing our finances when she'd never given a crap about that stuff before? This is a woman who once called our 401k a boring adult thing and zoned out whenever I talked about investments. That night, I couldn't sleep. I just lay there, watching her sleep, wondering if I even knew who she was anymore. The next morning, I made a decision. On my lunch break, I made a quick trip to this electronics store near my office and picked up a voice-activated recorder. If she spends that much time on the phone, she must be calling someone. I felt like a total creep buying it. The guy at the counter gave me this knowing look like, "Trouble at home, huh?" And I wanted to crawl into a hole. Part of me felt guilty, like, this is some serious spy movie stuff, recording your own wife. But something inside me kept saying this wasn't just random paranoia. All these little things were adding up to something bigger, and I needed to know what I was dealing with. I also started paying closer attention to her schedule. She said she had a work dinner that Thursday, so I casually drove by her office around 6:30. The parking lot was practically empty, and her car was nowhere to be seen. Could she be at a restaurant with CO workers? Sure. But combined with everything else, I was starting to think otherwise. I checked our cell phone bill too. There was this one number that kept showing up, especially during those times she was working late or having coffee with friends, like dozens of texts back and forth and calls that sometimes lasted an hour. The contact wasn't saved in our shared family plan account, just a number. Some of you might be thinking I'm being controlling or paranoid. Believe me, I've asked myself that too. But when you've been with someone for 7 years and they suddenly start acting like a different person, when the patterns you've built your relationship on start changing overnight, something's up. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, though. I needed solid proof before I made any accusations. Marriage counselors are always saying communication is key, right? But how do you communicate with someone who's clearly hiding something and lying to your face? A couple of days after I bought the recorder, she brought up the finances again. We were in the kitchen. I was making a sandwich, and she was on her phone when she randomly said, "Have you thought more about organizing the bank stuff? Like, do you know where all the account details are?" I put down the knife and looked at her. "Okay, what's going on?" I asked, trying to keep my tone light but firm. "You've been bringing up the finances a lot lately. Is there something we need to talk about?" She looked up from her phone, surprised, like she didn't expect me to question her. Her eyes got all wide for a second before she recovered. No, nothing's wrong, she said quickly, giving a fake laugh that sounded forced as hell. I just think it's important, that's all. You know, for emergencies. Again, the emergency excuse. Emergencies like what? I pressed. I could tell she was bullshitting me, and I wasn't letting it slide this time. She shrugged, her face going blank. I don't know. Just life stuff. It's not a big deal, I promise. She went back to scrolling on her phone like the conversation was over. Her answer was vague as hell. I nodded and dropped it, but the way she dodged giving a straight answer only made me more suspicious. It didn't feel like a casual suggestion anymore. It felt like she was hiding something and I had no clue what it was. That afternoon, while she was at work, I activated my spy mode. It felt weird as hell doing it, but I placed the voice recorder I'd bought under our bedroom dresser, hiding it behind some old shoe boxes. My hands were literally shaking the whole time, like, am I really doing this? Have I become that guy who spies on his wife? But at the same time, all these red flags were basically screaming in my face. Sometimes you gotta trust your gut, even when your heart doesn't want to believe it. For the next 2 days, I acted completely normal. We did our usual routine, made dinner together, watched some shows, talked about work. She mentioned needing to meet a work friend for coffee again that weekend. I just nodded and said, cool, I'll probably just catch up on some gaming. Inside, I was thinking, yeah, sure. Work friend. Okay. After she left for her coffee date, I waited about 20 minutes to make sure she wouldn't come back for something she forgot. Then I retrieved the recorder from under the dresser. My hands were literally shaking as I hit play, and I felt like I was going to throw up. Most of it was just normal household noise. Her getting ready in the morning, random calls about deadlines and meetings, boring stuff. I was starting to feel like a paranoid jerk for doing this. But then I heard a conversation that made my blood run cold. Yeah, I'm working on getting access to everything. Her voice came through clear as day. He has no idea. Such a trusting idiot. A pause. I know. Look, I just need a few more weeks to get the accounts organized. Then we can move on the transfer. The house in Tampa is perfect, Jason. We'll be living the dream while he's trying to figure out what happened. Jason, her coworker from the marketing department, the one she'd mentioned a few times as just a work friend. That just a work friend was all starting to make sense now. I sat there, replaying that section over and over, feeling like I'd been slapped in the face. She wasn't just cheating. She was planning to clean me out completely and run off with this Jason dude to Tampa. My wife of 4 years was literally calling me a trusting idiot while plotting to steal our life savings. What the actual heck? The recorder caught a few more conversations over the next couple of days. More plans, more details about accounts, more insulting comments about me. Honestly, hearing her laugh with him about how clueless I was hurt more than the cheating itself. The stress was eating me alive, so I reached out to my boy Mike. We go way back to college days and he's got my back no matter what. I invited him over for coffee while my wife was at another work event and told him everything I'd heard, trying not to sound like I was losing my mind. Look, he said after I explained, I'm not saying something's definitely going down, but you're not crazy for being suspicious. If you're worried about protecting your money, now's the time to do it. Better safe than sorry, my dude. He gave me a rundown of what I could do. Basic steps to make sure my finances were secure if something was happening. Not gonna lie, the idea of taking steps like that felt extreme. But the recording didn't leave much room for doubt. I kept replaying memories in my head. How did we get here? Was this really what our marriage had become? What happened to the woman I fell in love with? That evening, while she was out, I sat down at my desk and pulled out my laptop. My hands were legit shaking as I opened the browser and started going through everything. Bank accounts, investment accounts, the house deed. I decided to check our computer history, something I'd never done before. What I found was the final nail in the coffin. She'd been searching for how to transfer large sums without raising flags, property laws in Florida, and even how to hide money from spouse. There was even an email draft to Jason with a list of our account numbers and balances. This was real. She was actually planning to rob me blind and disappear with this guy. The woman I'd shared my life with for 7 years was now essentially plotting to financially murder me. I made a list of everything I could transfer and how to do it without raising red flags. As I typed, I felt this heavy weight on my chest. I'd trusted her completely for years, and now here I was, playing defense against the person who was supposed to have my back. I decided to call my parents for help. This was hard because we've never been close. I've never been their favorite, I was just there. But I needed someone I could trust to hold on to some assets temporarily. The call went about as well as expected. Mom, I need a favor, I started, my voice tense. What is it? She sounded annoyed already, like I was interrupting something important. I need to transfer some assets to your name temporarily. It's a protective measure. I think my wife might be planning something. The silence on the other end was deafening. Absolutely not, she finally said. I always knew she wasn't right for you, but now you're accusing her of stealing? This is ridiculous. Mom, I'm not making this up. No, she cut me off. I won't be part of your paranoid delusions. Your wife has been nothing but good to you. Better than you deserve, honestly. That stung. Even when I needed them most, they couldn't take my side. They'd always liked her more than me anyway. Maybe if you'd made something of yourself like your brother, you wouldn't be so insecure, she added, twisting the knife. I hung up without saying goodbye. Should have known better than to expect support from them. With my parents out as an option, I called Mike back. My parents aren't going to help, I told him, trying to keep my voice steady. Damn, that's cold, he said. Look, I've got a cousin who's a lawyer. Let me call him, see what options you have. By the end of the night, I had a plan. Mike's cousin explained how I could create a trust and move assets there. It wasn't ideal, but it was something better than sitting around waiting to get screwed over. Over the next week, I quietly moved most of our assets into the trust. I left just enough in our joint accounts to make it look normal, a decoy that would make her think everything was still there for the taking. I documented everything meticulously, making sure every transfer was legal and above board. I also set up a small camera in our home office, hoping to catch more evidence. The recorder had given me the confirmation I needed, but having video would make my case airtight if things went to court. All this time, I played dumb. I nodded along when she mentioned organizing our finances. I acted normal when she came home late from work meetings, and I pretended not to notice when she'd take calls from her mom, but the caller ID clearly showed a different name. It was the hardest acting job of my life, but I knew I needed to play it cool until everything was secured. As Mike's cousin said, the element of surprise is your best friend right now. 2 weeks went by and things seemed normal. Too normal, actually. She was acting more affectionate, initiating conversations about random stuff like work or dinner plans. It threw me off because for months she'd been distant, avoiding anything deeper than surface chat. Part of me started wondering if I'd been overreacting, but then I'd remember those recordings. That wasn't my imagination, that was her voice, planning to leave me broke while she ran off with Jason to Tampa. So I kept playing along with her little act, waiting to see what she'd do next. Then I had to leave on a business trip. At least that's what I told her. In reality, I was staying at Mike's place, finalizing everything with his lawyer cousin and getting the last pieces of evidence lined up. I told her I'd be gone for 4 days, but I intentionally came back on day 3. I waited until I knew she'd be home alone. The timing had to be perfect. Based on her patterns from the past few weeks, she'd usually make her secret calls around 2 p.m. while I was at work. So that's when I decided to walk in. And there she was, sitting at our kitchen table, laptop open, straight up laughing as she completed some bank transfer. Our accounts were pulled up on the screen, or what she thought were our accounts. In reality, she was looking at the decoy accounts I'd left active with just enough cash to make her think she'd hit payday. "What are you doing?" I asked, dropping my travel bag on the floor. You should have seen her face. For a split second, there was this look of pure terror before she tried to recover. She didn't even close the laptop. Instead, she just smirked. Not that warm smile I fell for years ago, but this cold-ass look I'd never seen before. "You trusted the wrong person," she said, turning the laptop so I could see what she thought was our emptied savings account. I just stood there, letting her think she'd won. All those nights reviewing bank statements, setting up the trust, recording her conversations. It all came down to this moment. I almost wanted to laugh, but I kept it together. "You're too naive for this world," she continued, checking her fancy watch I bought her last Christmas, always trusting everyone. "Did you really think someone like me would stay with someone like you forever?" "Yeah, naive." Naive, right, I thought, because the real genius move is leeching off the guy who financed your entire shallow existence. I said nothing, just watched her wheel her suitcases to the door, which I hadn't even noticed were already packed and waiting in the hallway. She'd been planning this moment, waiting for me to be gone so she could clean me out and disappear. When I didn't react, no begging, no crying, no anger, she looked confused for a second. Then she shrugged, grabbed her keys, and bounced. The second the door closed, I pulled out my phone and made 3 calls, 1 to my lawyer, 1 to the bank, and 1 to the police. Then I sat down and opened my own laptop. What she didn't know was that I'd been building a case for weeks. The voice recordings where she explicitly discussed stealing our savings with Jason, the browser history showing searches for properties in Tampa, the video from our home office camera catching her taking pictures of our financial documents, the email drafts outlining their entire plan. The money she transferred? That decoy account with just enough cash to make her think she'd cleaned me out, but not enough to actually hurt me. Meanwhile, the real money was safely tucked away in a trust she couldn't touch. I sat back in my chair and waited. I knew it wouldn't take long before reality hit her. Sure enough, about 6 hours later, my phone started blowing up. First with texts. "What the hell is happening with the transfer? Call me now." "What did you do?" Then the calls started. I let them all go to voicemail. Each message was more frantic than the last. I caught bits like, "The money's gone and Jason isn't answering," before deleting them. Turns out her boyfriend had his own side plan. According to the bank, he'd taken the $30,000 she'd transferred to their shared account and immediately withdrawn it before ghosting her. Her perfect escape plan had fallen apart at both ends. Within 2 days, as expected, she showed up at my office building, screaming that I'd somehow stolen her money, that I'd reported her to the bank for fraud. Security had to escort her out while she yelled that I had tricked her. Little did she know I had just filed a police report for attempted grand theft, with all my evidence lined up like dominoes ready to fall. Her text that night, "I didn't mean it, it was a mistake. We can work this out." My response? I didn't bother sending one. Instead, I forwarded all the evidence to my lawyer and let the legal system do its thing. The police opened an investigation immediately. They were particularly interested in the recorded conversations planning the theft, the email trails, and bank records showing her systematic transfers over weeks. You know what's messed up? Some of our mutual friends actually took her side at first. She fed them some story about me being controlling and hiding money from her. Until I showed one of them, my buddy Dan, the actual recordings. His face went from skeptical to shocked in about 30 seconds. "Dude, I had no idea," he said, looking genuinely disturbed. "She told everyone you were paranoid and making stuff up." That's when I realized how good of an actress she'd been all along, not just with me, but with everyone. She'd built this image of being this sweet, loving wife that everyone believed, while she was plotting to clean me out and disappear with another dude. The first court hearing was yesterday. I submitted all the evidence. Then my lawyer pulled out the coup de grace, the recordings. We also have evidence that Mrs. Anderson was planning to empty their joint accounts and flee to Tampa with a coworker named Jason Reynolds. Her lawyer's eyes went wide. "Is this true?" he asked her. She started stammering about how the recordings were taken out of context, how it was all a misunderstanding. But the panic in her voice gave her away. My lawyer continued. "We have browser history showing searches for properties in Tampa, voice recordings explicitly discussing the plan to transfer funds without my client's knowledge, and video evidence of Mrs. Anderson photographing financial documents." He then played a short clip from one of the recordings. Her voice filled the room. "He has no idea. Such a trusting idiot. Once I get access to everything, we can transfer it all out." Her face went white. The mediator's eyebrows shot up so high they almost flew off her face. Her lawyer, looking pissed at being blindsided, asked for a recess to speak with his client privately. When they returned about 15 minutes later, his demeanor had completely changed. He was now requesting a reasonable settlement rather than demanding half of everything. She was beyond pissed. "You're unbelievable," she snapped, leaning forward across the table. "I can't believe you do something like this to me." I still didn't respond. What was there to say? This wasn't about me doing something to her. This was about protecting myself because she'd made it clear she wasn't leaving without trying to clean me out. The mediator, trying to keep things professional, suggested we take a break and reconvene next week after emotions have settled. But it was obvious to everyone in the room that they were screwed. When we walked out of the building, she pulled me aside in the hallway, her face a mix of anger and desperation. "This isn't over," she said, her voice low. "You're going to regret this." I just looked at her and said, "I already regret trusting you. That's the only regret I have." Her attorney already reached out about a settlement, but I'm not interested in settling. This isn't about money anymore. It's about consequences. Some mutual friends have reached out saying I should try to work things out, that marriages go through rough patches. Like, are you kidding me? I'm not gonna lie, there are moments when I'm alone at night, and I miss the person I thought she was. But then I remember her voice on that recording, calling me a trusting idiot, and I remember this person never existed in the first place. For now, I'm staying at Mike's place. He's been my rock through all this. When your world is falling apart, you really find out who your real friends are. I've been dealing with the last of the legal crap and trying to get my head right again. Thanks for riding this roller coaster with me. The day after our first court session, my parents showed up at my house, banging on the door like they were the FBI. Apparently, my soon-to-be ex had called them after the mediation, crying her little victim story straight into their gullible ears. I opened the door, and my mom wasted no time. "How could you do this to her?" she snapped, eyes blazing like she was about to cast me out of the family for good. "After everything she's done for you." Right, everything she'd done for me, like draining my accounts and planning her dramatic exit like it was some kind of heist movie. Meanwhile, my dad just stood there with that signature disappointed dad face, arms crossed like he was judging me from a mountaintop. "Your brother would never treat his wife this way," he said, his voice low and full of condemnation. "This is why we always worried about you." Even now, they were defending her. Somehow, she'd managed to twist everything and turn them against me. And my own parents were standing there, practically foaming at the mouth to make sure I knew how much of a failure I was. You don't know what's really happening, I tried to explain, but they'd already decided I was the villain of this tragic tale. We know enough, my mom shot back. She told us everything. How you've been controlling. How you set her up to fail. I couldn't even wrap my head around it. She'd been running her mouth, painting me as the monster, while she was the one ripping me off and probably laughing about it with her friends over overpriced cocktails. And my parents? They were eating it up like it was gospel. I didn't argue much, which made them more pissed. Before they left, my mom gave me one last look, pure disgust painted across her face. Don't bother coming to Sunday dinner anymore. You're not welcome. They stormed off, leaving me standing in the doorway like a complete idiot. That hit way harder than I wanted to admit, but I still had Mike waiting in his car down the street. He had my back when nobody else did. After that, things moved pretty fast. I tracked down Jason, the work dude she was planning to run away with, through Mike's connections. Turns out he was hiding at his cousin's place across town. With a promise of immunity, he agreed to spill everything. Turns out she'd been planning this for almost a year. And get this, there was another guy from her gym she was running the same con on, telling him they'd move to Austin instead of Tampa, making the same promises. The absolute audacity. Jason agreed to testify, which was the final nail in her coffin. His statement to the court showed how she'd initiated the whole plan, calculated what they could take without me noticing, and researched the best time to file for divorce to maximize her take. After that, she went into full meltdown mode. First came the apologetic calls. I think we just need to talk, and I know this got messy, but we can fix it. When I didn't respond, she flipped to rage mode, calling me manipulative and vindictive. I ignored all of it on my lawyer's advice. Whenever I felt a twinge of sympathy, I'd replay that recording of her calling me a trusting idiot and planning to clean me out when the calls didn't work. She tried a new angle with our friends, claiming the divorce was an elaborate prank or a test of our relationship. Some people actually bought it at first. I'd get these weird messages like, "Wow, I didn't know you were being so harsh to her." But once Jason's testimony and screenshots went public, everything changed. The screenshots spread through friend groups like wildfire, and suddenly nobody was buying her anymore. People who defended her were now messaging me with apologies. Even my parents finally came around when faced with the evidence. Dad called with an awkward apology, and Mom texted that she was sorry for misjudging the situation. Too little, too late. I told them I needed space. By the time the divorce was finalized last week, she had nothing but her personal stuff. Her lawyer dropped her case after the Jason revelations. There wasn't a legal leg to stand on. All her demands crumbled, and my trust was untouchable. As for me, I kept the house, my savings, and most importantly, my sanity. Mike helped me repaint and rearrange everything to make it feel like my place again. We even burned the bed we shared at Mike's uncle's farm and bought all new bedroom furniture. And life finally feels like it's back in my control. No more second guessing, no more betrayal, just peace. Some people, like my parents, are still trying to reconnect, but I'm keeping my distance for now. Some bridges stay burned,